Paleozoic Copium aside, these are the cards that really matter from the Infinite Forbidden. Well, not you. Necroquip Princess. So, level 6 Dark Fiend Fusion. Attack 2000, defense 2000. Materials, 1 monster equipped with a monster card and a Fiend monster card. Must be special summoned from the extra deck by sending the above cards from your hand and or field to the graveyard. You can only control 1 Necroquip Princess. If a monster is sent from the hand to the graveyard to activate a card or effect, you can activate one of these effects, either equip one of those monsters to this or draw a card. When I first saw this card, I did not realize how powerful it was, because there's one thing I did not realize about this is if you have one Fiend monster, if you have a monster that is equipped with a Fiend monster, that's enough to summon this. You can send the monster plus its own equipped monster rather, to the graveyard at the same time to summon this card, right? All you need, this is basically a Link 1, is what you need to understand. Basically, this is a Link 1 monster for every monster that's equipped with a Fiend, right? But it's a Link 1 that's a level 6. So what this does, let's walk through what this does now real quick, just so we understand. Let me open up, you guessed it, the Fiendsmith cards over here, and we'll go through this one by one. So we've talked about how Closed Moon, the Link 2 monster from the Infinite Forbidden, how this card can go into your Fiendsmith combo if you don't have access to it by having a couple of bodies on the field. Now, before they announced the TCG exclusives from the Infinite Forbidden, you would actually need 3 bodies, because what you would do is you would use 2 effect monsters to link into Moon of the Closed Heaven. Moon of the Closed Heaven would then link into Fiendsmith Requiem, right? Which you can then tribute to special summon a Fiendsmith from your hand or deck, right? You summon you tribute to Requiem to summon a Fiendsmith Engraver, right? And so the reason why you needed an extra body in this instance was because if you have only the Fiendsmith Engraver on the field, you can't get it to the graveyard actually, right? Like you'd go Requiem, summon out Engraver, and then you wouldn't have a way to get it off the field to continue doing your stuff, right? Now, what you can do is you can use Requiem's effect in the graveyard to equip itself to the Fiendsmith Engraver, right? So the situation is you have a Fiendsmith Engraver on the field equipped with Fiendsmith Requiem. And like I said earlier, this enables you to summon this card. You're not actually using 2 different monsters for it on your field. You're using the monster equipped with a monster card, that is the Fiendsmith, and you're using a Fiend monster card. And the Fiend monster card in this equation is the Requiem in your spell and trap zone. So this card is basically specifically designed to solve this problem that if you only have 2 bodies, you go into Moon, you go into Requiem, you tribute Requiem, you go into Engraver, you have no way to get the Engraver to the graveyard to continue comboing. This card solves that problem. But isn't it an equip spell? So here's where the wording in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is really important. The Requiem in your spell and trap zone is still a monster card. It is a monster card that is currently in your spell and trap zone. It is not a monster, but it is a monster card. It's an important difference that I also overlooked when I read this card for the first time. I understand your confusion, completely understandable, but a monster that is currently in your spell and trap zone is still considered a monster card because it was originally a monster card. It is just currently vibing in the spell and trap zone, right? This is comparable to, for example, some of the Centurion cards have the same wording. I believe Centurion Stand Up says, cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects while you control a Centurion monster card. Is the text on Centurion Stand Up. This card is also protected while you have a Centurion monster in your spell and trap zone, right? that is still a Centurion monster card. Stand-up Centurion is still protected in this instance, for example. And I think there's a lot of other examples for this. Just one example to you, so you get the idea, right? This is specifically why this card is crazy. And you would be like, okay, why is that crazy though? I'm just turning a level 6 with Fiendsmith into another level 6 with Necroequip Princess. Well, the reason why that's crazy is because you've put Engraver into the graveyard, so you can now use its graveyard effect, right? So let's walk through that. Moon of the Closed Heaven, Requiem, tribute Requiem, summon Fiendsmith, equip Requiem from the graveyard to Fiendsmith, fusion summon, which is essentially Link 1, Necroequip Princess. Now Fiendsmith, oh, my bad. Now Fiendsmith Engraver is in the graveyard. So we're gonna use, if this card's in your grave, shuffle another Light Fiend from graveyard into the deck or extra deck, special summon this card. Now we've got Fiendsmith Engraver plus Necroequip Princess on the field, so we can go into Fiendsmith Sequence, which is 2 monsters, including a Light Fiend, and then we can fusion summon with that. We summon out Lacrima. Lacrima now revives the Fiendsmith, and we're Gucci, right? It's or we can even add the Fiendsmith to the hand and then discard it to search Tractus and all that kind of stuff. Whatever we want to do, right? But we've now basically turned 1 Moon of the Closed Heaven without any extra bodies. There's no more ifs. There's no more, well, you need a 3rd body to, otherwise the Fiendsmith on the field, you can't get rid of it, yada yada. No, now, because they made this card, the Moon of the Closed Heaven is now full Fiendsmith combo. No more ifs attached, right? So this is something I personally don't understand. I don't feel like Fiendsmith needed this buff, but yeah. Could Chorozo be used too? I mean, Chorozo isn't out yet, so it's irrelevant for now, right? And then there's also Aerial Eater, which is also a level 6 Fiend fusion. Requires 2 Fiend monsters with the same attribute. If this card is fusion summoned, you can send a Fiend monster from your deck to the graveyard. If this card is in your graveyard, you can banish 2 level 6 or higher Fiend monsters with the same attributes from your graveyard, except Aerial Eater, special summon this card. This card is also good. I've seen some people make use of this card in Fiendsmith decks as well, because I think Fiendsmith Sequence can also summon this card if you want to basically foolish any Fiend monster. So this now gives Fiendsmith even more ways to pivot into all kinds of combos via this, like, you know. So this card is really, really powerful. This card is also potentially a super poly target if it's ever relevant, but like 2 Fiend monsters with the same attribute, you could already fusion summon Garura with that. So I don't know how relevant that really is. Like, it's basically Garura, but only for Fiends. So I don't know if that's relevant, but it's better if you're playing a Fiend deck yourself. Then it might be better to summon this than Garura, right? Look, I personally hope that I can only guess as to what their motivation with these cards are, because surely they did not think we needed more cards to make sure the Fiendsmith cards sell, because there was never going to be a problem with that. Like, Fiendsmith was always going to be good even without these cards, right? So I'm just gonna have to make an educated guess, or like a copium guess. You guys are gonna call me coping for that again, but maybe this means they want to hit other cards related to Fiendsmith, like Beatrice, like maybe Apollousa, to like on the August ban list, so that Fiendsmith itself is still powerful because there's other powerful Fiend support, right? But the Fiendsmith stuff is not as good in some other decks, right? That's the only guess I have. The only way for me personally to understand why we're making these cards. So yeah, that's all I got. I don't know. In general, that's the thing. In general, once again, these cards are not that good. It's not the It's not the cards themselves that are a problem. They are just really good. They are handcrafted for Fiendsmith. And that's what's weird to me. Like, why did we make a card that is just an okay Yu-Gi-Oh card in the overall, in the grand scheme of things, right? These cards are not problematic, but why do we release them exactly now when they are basically just boosting Fiendsmith, which was already gonna be the best deck by far, right? So, remains to be seen. We have the NAWCQ this weekend to see how these cards impact the game. I am 100% sure we're gonna see a bunch of Necroquip Princess during that tournament. So we're gonna have to wait and see what's gonna happen on this. Literally, I feel like everyone knows what's to be expected in the next upcoming month in the couple tournaments, right? People know what to expect. Fiendsmith is going to be one hell of a deck. Fiendsmith Snake Eye and also Fiendsmith Yubel are going to be incredible decks for the Continental Championships. There will be a watch party. Yes, we're going to be watching NAWCQ on stream together. I'll be live for both days. I don't know if I'm going to be able to stream the entirety of day one, but I'll be here for both days. I think what we should do as a community is just kind of hold our breath until the August ban list, okay? Like, yes, Fiendsmith is gonna dominate for the next month, and I think, honestly, I don't think they're going to, what's it called? Really kill Fiendsmith immediately. I don't think that's gonna happen. But still, I think we should wait for the August ban list to judge the Infinite Forbidden format. I think the real Infinite Forbidden format starts in August, unfortunately after Continentals, but yeah.